Hello, friends. So today, we were playing a game, and it was really funny because I said something, I made a comment, and then my mother-in-law said, "Hey, Rob, that's a good idea for a video." And I thought, "You're right. That's a great idea for a video." So that is the video that I am creating right now. But what happened was, we're playing this game called No Thanks. And this is me and Katie and Annalise, and eventually Bubby, her grandmother, got dragged into it. And it's a game where the object is it's a card game where the object is to get as few points as possible. And so you're trying to not take cards with a high number on them, and you use these tokens to kind of pass the buck and say no thanks and make the next person hopefully have to take the high cards and you take the low. There's all kinds of strategies in there, but the key thing to understand about the game is that it's a game where what we want is not to have points. And when you're playing that game with a not quite 4-year-old, it becomes evident that the cognitive capacity to desire to not have something is one that we grow into. Because Annalise sat there at her place in the game and wanted every card. High, low, she just wanted all the cards. Of course, she also wanted all the tokens, which is sort of like, which put her in a bit of a bind, although not really, because she ended up just taking everybody's tokens whenever anybody else would no thanks with a token. She would just take those tokens. So, she had like record numbers of points, hundreds of points, when the idea is to like get as few as possible. And it was really fun to watch this happen and watch her. It never really sank in that the idea was to not get points. She would just proudly sit at her seat with all these cards that she had and all the tokens, and just like loving that she was getting to take cards off the table. And what kind of clicked for me as I was tracking, this is a cognitive leap. The capacity to understand that the object here is to not want something, to actually try to avoid having to take something. That's a stretch for a young mind. It's something we have to grow into to even be able to understand enough to be able to function like that. But then I started thinking about all the ways in which desire works in normal adults, in myself, and how in the Buddhist tradition, desire is kind of perceived as a rejection of the truth. It's substitutes. It is a craving of the feeling of depth, fulfillment, infinity, bliss, but attaching that feeling, attaching the promise of that feeling to objects that we can acquire. So it's like we are acquiring things, or in my particular case, I think acquiring skills. The thing is, the things that we treat materialistically don't have to be material things. They can be, because everything in the universe is material, including thought, including totally ethereal things are still material. They're just subtle material. So we can be materialistic about our thoughts. We can be materialistic about our spiritual practices and beliefs and everything. And I think in my particular case, for me it's skill building and development. There's a craving of that, and there's a projection onto those growth opportunities and those processes of growth that holds out the promise for me that one day I'll be there and I'll actually that process of growth will culminate in a fulfillment that is absolute. And that's not going to happen. That's not how it works. So I was reading in Sadhguru's book, Inner Engineering, the other day, and he talks about the search for truth. He describes it as essentially being a process of rejecting false conclusions. What our mind is looking for is a conclusion. We want to be able to arrive somewhere at a point of rest and understand and sort of have the answer. But truth is not an answer. The reality of the universe is not a conclusion. So that turn of phrase where he says it's a process of rejecting all false conclusions. It's a matter of letting go of that mechanism that craves a conclusion and that will consistently grab at them and attach to processes, attach to things with the hope that someday those things will amount to ultimate fulfillment. I find that a really elegant way of phrasing it because it's an orientation. It's not what's the answer, where can I find it? It's what direction am I looking? And if we're looking for the answers, if we're looking for a conclusion, we're facing towards the mind. We're facing in a direction that can never yield the answer. Whereas if we can stop doing that and face in a direction that allows here's where I don't even know that I know how to say it, because I think that I will try to turn this next bit into a new conclusion. But it's like this image again from Sadhguru's book where he talks about like if you look at the planet and the planet and the sun, when you're on the backside of the planet, when it's nighttime, it's not that the sun doesn't exist, it's that the planet is looking the wrong way. We got to look the right way. So this notion of watching a young person have trouble with the cognitive capacity to be playing a game with an object that is to avoid getting stuff is really similar to the human conundrum, the human spiritual conundrum, where we think that it's stuff. We think that it's getting this, getting that, getting. We think that that's what's going to get us there. But but the rules of the game are that's you're going literally nowhere. All these long incremental processes of incremental growth from the point of view of spiritual transformation, you're not just going slow, you're going nowhere. And I think that is part of what part of what my mind, when I talk about this existential crisis that I'm kind of in, that's one of the things that I think is really hard. I want to reject that. I don't want to believe. I should say that carefully. My mind doesn't want to accept that none of that work means anything when it comes to transformation. Because it's a rejection of everything. Nobody wants. That's not something that our ego wants to accept. But I think if there's an orientation that does create alignment, that is facing in the direction of truth, it's the first thing that has to happen is you have to realize what direction that's not, and receive and accept that the direction that I've been facing is not the direction that's going to take me there. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, folks. Much love. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.